Hi, good afternoon. Like Will said, my name is Stefan. I teach in the history department at Friends Seminary. I teach a course, as Will mentioned, called Power, Politics, and Citizenship. And I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about how that particular course is addressing the 2016 presidential election. And I'm also going to talk to you about a few of the department-wide initiatives that we are undertaking so as to expose not just the upper school but the middle school students as well to what is happening during this historic presidential campaign season. I want to begin by noting that this election is, by all accounts, a very virulent, at times nasty, and at times difficult to understand election. And in preparing to expose our students to this, a lot of the work that we've been undertaking has been rooted in the history department's statement on teaching controversial issues. You can look at the entire statement on the history department portion of the Friends Seminary website, but I've highlighted a couple of key phrases that we as a department feel truly reflect what we're trying to accomplish in teaching this particular election to our students. We want to make sure that we underscore the fact that it is only through constructive dialogue that we're able to actually create any sort of reasonable understanding of what's happening with regards to these two candidates and to this particular process. We want to make sure that we are providing our students with the tools necessary to equitably tackle the issues that are at the crux of this election. I'll be speaking specifically about a couple of the issues that we are tackling as both a department and in my politics class. And then finally, we want to foster in our students an ability to be able to discern from what has become an overwhelming abundance of inflammatory rhetoric and instead focus more so on meaningful analysis. And that comes in the form of being able to, again, constructively discuss the issues, but also being able to look at a variety of different sources, media included, and being able to pick which ones are equitably tackling this race and which ones are just sort of regurgitating the talking points of both parties and both candidates. So with regards to the department as a whole, we have a couple of overarching goals that we're emphasizing. Number one, this election, and any election, frankly, presents an excellent opportunity for our students to dive deeper into the political process in the United States. Obviously, that's going to be different depending on whether you're teaching a class of 7th graders or whether you're teaching a class of 12th graders, but universally, this is one of the goals that we hope to address. And we don't want this to be a standalone thing. This is a moment where we can truly inspire our students to continue on participating politically in some way, shape, or form outside the classroom. And this is particularly relevant when you think about the seniors that are in the politics class, as many of them will be voting for the first time, and almost all of them will be going off to college campuses. So we want to make sure that we instill in them this understanding that it doesn't just stop with the election, that you can continue to be an active political agent as you move throughout life. Again, underscoring the need for constructive dialogue is something that we not only encourage our students to do, but as faculty we are seeking to model that for our students so that they get a first-hand exposure into what it looks like. And then also to acknowledge the fact that there is a lot of bias that's going to be at play with talking about these issues. People's personal morals, people's personal values are going to be present, whether that's a newspaper article or whether that's a list of statistics. We can't sort of separate the fact that there is going to be bias in the things that we're looking at. With regards to my course specifically, in addressing the election, there's a couple of specific questions. They're very simple on the outset that I'm asking of my students. First and foremost, who are the candidates? Now, it might seem like a simple question. Kid could just simply answer, well, it's Trump and Clinton. But I want to delve deeper than that. I want my students to understand what it means when we say that Donald Trump is a Republican and Hillary Clinton is a Democrat. Donald Trump leans more towards conservative values. Hillary Clinton leans more towards liberal values. What does that mean? And perhaps most importantly, I want to underscore where the candidates stand on the issues. So we have to identify what the relevant issues are of the 2016 race. Now, I only have my students for a semester, so it's impossible to delve deeply into every single issue that has come up so far in this race. So we are going to be taking a broad snapshot of the issues in my class, but we're also going to be diving specifically into 3 issues in particular that I'm going to detail for you in a few minutes. And then we also have to address the elephant in the room, pun intended. Our kids are 17 and 18 years old in my elective. They have a lot of questions as to, is this a normal presidential race? Is Donald Trump a normal presidential candidate? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I'm hoping to broaden the students' understanding of what is turning out to be a rather unique campaign. Of course, you can't just dive in and immediately begin talking about the election with 17 and 18-year-olds. So we have to build a foundational understanding to begin with. And the way that I do that in my class is that I focus on 2 things: communication and fostering a basic understanding of the political process. You might think of that as sort of civics. We begin by taking a look at an article by a philosophy professor named Patrick Stokes titled, "No, You're Not Entitled to Your Own Opinion." In looking at this article, what I hope to impart to my students is that every bit of argumentation that's going to take place in my class is going to have at its foundation some sort of factual or measurable evidence. I don't want students coming in and simply espousing their feelings with regards to what's happening in the political arena. I want them to be able to substantively argue and to engage in discussion. We want them using words like majority, likelihood, evidence indicates that, in order to make them more astute at the discussion process. And while I'm doing that, I'm also building my students' understanding of the basic political processes in a democratic system, taking a look at concepts such as the state, the citizen, and how the two interact with each other. Now, once that foundational understanding has been established, I can segue into talking about the election itself. So in introducing the candidates, it's going to be important for me to very clearly spell out what it means to be liberal, what it means to be conservative, and how that translates into the modern political parties. Also, in taking a look at each of the respective candidates, it's going to be vital to understand where they stand on a litany of different issues. So we're going to be visiting the candidates' websites extensively throughout this portion of my curriculum. The specific issues which we're going to be diving deeper into are ones that I've selected based on the number of mentions they have garnered in popular media. Immigration, economic inequality, and identity and criminal justice are going to be the 3 that we're going to tackle. And then in explaining the candidacy of Donald Trump, we're going to take a look at where his support derives from, and also the relationship that has been developed between Mr. Trump and the American media. So how do I teach liberalism and conservatism? I take my students through a video by Jonathan Haidt called The Moral Roots of Liberals and Conservatives. And just to give you a brief synopsis of what this is, it's essentially an argument that liberals and conservatives are 2 sides of the same coin, that at the end of the day, they both want the same things: national security, economic prosperity, government stability, and accountability. It's only when morals and values and people's personal preference come into the fray that we experience the difference that has now given us the Republican and the Democratic parties. Once the students have an understanding of that, we can really dive into the respective candidates themselves. And what we're going to be doing is spending at least several class sessions taking a look at the candidates' websites. What we're going to do, is there a pointer on this? No? Okay. What we're going to be doing is specifically focusing on the issues. You can't really see here, but both candidates, these are the front pages of their websites, have tabs that denote issues. We're going to create a side-by-side comparison so that students don't have to visit one website to see what Donald Trump thinks about one particular issue and then go to Hillary's site to see what she thinks. We're going to be crafting a document that they can use as sort of a quick reference guide that we hope to share with other upper school students upon its completion. With regards to the 3 issues that are going to be the primary focus of much of the curriculum surrounding the election, it's going to take me multiple classes to get through all of them, so I don't have enough time to detail for you exactly what it is that I'm going to be doing. But what I do want to share with you are the resources, at least some of them, that I plan on using. With regards to developing a certain degree of media literacy, I've picked sites that, like the Washington Post, tend to lean a little bit right, like New York Times tend to lean a little bit left. 538 is a site that focuses overwhelmingly on statistical data and representation. And then you have a couple of sites that would be considered more moderate or middle of the road, like Vox and Politico and Slate. In addressing the issue of economic inequality specifically, I'm also going to pull from two documentary series. The first one entitled Inequality for All by former Secretary of Labor Robert Reich, which takes students through sort of a statistical trip down the economic inequality highway, looking at numbers and how they correspond to the current economic situation in the United States. And then Rich Hill is a documentary which follows a group of young men who live in rural poverty in the United States, and in effect to essentially attach a face with the more statistical representation that we see in the Reich film. Then finally, we're going to be using a study out of Princeton University called Testing Theories of American Politics, Elites, Interest Groups, and Average Citizens. And this is essentially going to be a moment whereby students can confront the reality of how the federal government addresses these issues. How successful is the federal government in addressing the issues? Does the will of the people match necessarily the actions of the federal government? And then finally, explaining Trump. In addition to the resources that I just detailed on the previous slide, we're going to be pulling from three specific areas to act as launching points for a broader discussion about candidate Trump. The first, Vox News' authoritarianism, is an excellent statistical explanation for where Trump's support is coming from and why it seems to be bubbling to the top at this very moment in American history. Matt Taibbi, who's a reporter for Rolling Stone, wrote an article called The Summer of Shill, which explores the relationship between the American media and Donald Trump. And finally, Matt Holland, everyone gets it wrong about Trump and white voters, will again seek to attach a face to this more statistical data, talking directly to Trump supporters and attempting to garner why they chose to support this particular candidate. And then finally, I want to wrap up by mentioning a few of the more large-scale departmental initiatives that the History Department is undertaking. At the middle school level, grades 7 and 8 are going to be engaging in lessons that focus specifically on the process of the election, taking a look at what it means to have an electoral college, how gerrymandering affects the political process, and what it means when people become overly reliant on poll data or polling data during an election season. The middle school also features a current events club, which is going to, in an age-appropriate manner, attempt to tackle some of the difficult issues that are at the crux of this race. At the upper school level, I was lucky enough last year to act as an advisor on a series of 20 films produced by Show of Force Productions that have just actually recently debuted last week. And they are a series of videos that are aimed specifically at low information, at first-time voters. Again, much of the population that we are teaching in our juniors and our seniors. The videos are separated into three groups. I can't read them because it's too small, but I think it's the system, it's getting involved, and it's the issues. So again, we're attempting to explain the political process to our students, to make them aware of the various issues, and to explain how they, even at this young age, can get involved in the political process. We currently are set to view several of these videos during upper school meeting for announcements. They're about 8 minutes long, and hopefully they will spur continued discussion outside of the meeting. Additionally, the department has developed what it is calling current events breakfast meetings. Our 11th grade curriculum is entirely United States history. So the 11th grade students will be given a particular issue that has been predetermined by myself and our department head. They will be given a list of resources where they can find additional information about these issues. And then they are required to essentially conduct a roundtable discussion in the morning from 7:15 to 8 a.m., whereby any upper school student from grades 9 to 12 can attend, as well as faculty and staff. And this is just another way that we're attempting to give a little bit more ownership to our students with regards to what they want to talk about and how they want to discuss it. That's the conclusion of my presentation, so I don't know how questions?